I believe you should have on your Mentimeter thing a question, ability to put up questions on there. And they're going to come up in the background here as you put a question up, and we can ask the panel your questions. Don't be shy. The whole point of having Mentimeter is that if you don't like asking questions out loud, you can write them down. And it doesn't matter. Nobody knows who you are, unless you put your hands up afterwards. I have a quick question for Dan, whilst you're thinking about what to put up. Dan, thank you very much for your presentation. I learned loads because I don't normally deal with this sort of stuff. Lids. On the lids, you showed the gaskets, and you showed you being able to take them on and off. Do those lids sometimes end up on another tray? And if so, is that a problem?
Yeah, I believe that is the case. Yeah, they do. I mean, you've not only got problems of potentially mixing up lids between manufacturers, but the manufacturers would recommend that the container that is sold retains that lid as well, to be completely sure that that is a validated container. So that is a real challenge to be able to do that, of course, because particularly if they're all the same colour. So that's another consideration. So yeah, basically.
So with the tracking and traceability systems that are on there, the use of RFID, was it? Would you have to, if you wanted to connect it to the same tray, would you have to actually?
Yeah, I didn't really look too much into how the RFID is being used, but there might be some people in the audience who have got experience with that. But yeah, I think I'm assuming you would have to attach it to both to retain that traceability between the two. But of course, it's another thing when there's a challenging workload already and lots to consider.
So thank you very much for that. We have some questions coming up at the back. No, you can't look round. So I'm going to start with, how frequently should containers be maintained? Any of you can answer that, but Dan, obviously, you've just...
Okay. I'll answer it. So the recommendation is, from my presentation, that you have, first of all, regular training put in place for the staff. But yeah, really, you have to be able to justify that, the same as with instrumentation, some inspection protocol. So, really, they need to be inspected every time they're used, visually. And that really, I suppose, begs the question of what happens when you find a container that isn't potentially fit for purpose. So yeah, it needs to be an ongoing thing, and that's the point of changing the culture from not looking at these things to looking at them regularly.
So Jim, you've got something to say?
I was going to say I quite liked the device that tested the pressure, and for me that would be the right sort of answer, because having a look at a lid and a seal doesn't tell you it's going to work or not. So.
Okay. So would on-site composters be a potential solution to introduction of bioplastic materials? Jincy, you got any? Jincy? I remember, does anybody remember when we had Mary from Happy Earth? I don't know if you remember her at one of the other study days that we had, but I've noticed that she's managed to get some more funding, and that seems to be moving quite along forward with the biocompostables of PPE. So I'm beginning to wonder whether this is a possibility.
So there are facilities. I'm not sure how many of you heard about PharmaFilter. So it's like it's almost act like a biocomposters in any waste from the hospital, including needles and syringe. Instead of going for incineration, it can be put into PharmaFilter. So it's a machine, almost it's like a bedpan washer in the ward. All the waste actually just pushed into that. It will break down, and final product is the energy and then the clean water. So there are facilities and that is available in the world. they arguably say that the water that comes out of it is actually drinkable water, even that comes from the sewers. Then they would even drink it and show it to you. But I would be skeptical about it. But that can be used for irrigation and cleaning purposes. The process will remove all chemicals, drugs, any antibiotics, and also plastics and microplastics also from the water.
So there's something out there. That's good. Any comments from anyone else? I can see your cogs working there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a very, very big question as to whether we can move away from incineration, because whatever we do when we incinerate, we're just pumping it straight up into the environment. We might do a bit of heat recovery, but that's 10%, 20% maybe, I don't know, just guessing at numbers there, but it isn't going to be a lot. So it almost has to be a conscious decision on an NHS type basis that, okay, we're going to move away from incineration, we're going to go to bioplastics, and we're going to accept composting of some sort.
Okay. So we've got loads of questions come up at the back now. Go back to containers. Containers are validated, but you need medical device manufacturer to validate the content in containers in their IFU. That's a statement. Is that yes? Agreed?
Yeah. Makes
Yes.
sense.
So yeah, there has to
Yes.
be some validation on the container and what's put in it.
Yeah. Right. Dan, you got a couple of specific questions. One I will ask as a
Great.
final thing. Dan, are there grants available to identify CSSDs to switch to containers with respect to achieving net carbon goals? We process 500 sets daily in our CSSD.
I've no idea if there are grants, but my recommendation was, I guess, if certain sites like Cardiff have been involved in these pilots, is to speak to colleagues who are at these sites and find out what the process is and how that was something that came about. I don't know if that was something that the Design for Life piggybacked onto, and that was something that was happening anyway. But yeah, I don't know.
Right, okay. Well, something to investigate, whoever asked that one. Are you aware of any large biodegradable bags for returns to HSD, CSSD, SSD to keep instruments moist? I'm not sure which one. Who would like that one? Whoa, it's a question. Question could be answered. That's a question for them to ponder and think about. No, at the moment.
Not at the moment that I'm aware of.
So what was it you said earlier? It was like, if anybody wants to invest in this might be a good idea.
Yeah, there's a couple of research options that is coming up.
Yeah. Hospital laundries, how many work to a quality management system? None?
So the hospital laundries are supposed to follow the HTM standards. Have they been inspected? No. As part of the infection control, in Ireland we had a policy that we have to look every year. When I came to Scotland, it looks like we don't have to. But ideal, even if it is during the tender process, but it looks like once you are in the framework, you don't even have to go through the tender process. So they are just on a bit of loose cannon at the moment. But there should be strict protocols and policies. What they are working on is actually more on sustainability. So what makes the cleaning, exactly the cleaning, the temperature, the chemical, and then the water, the amount of the water. So to improve the sustainability, they try to maintain keep maintaining the temperature, because that is by law, they need to maintain that. But they try to decrease the amount of the water, because there is no statement in the STM how much water they should be using per kilogram of linen. Then there is no clear amount of chemicals they have to use. So they are trying to even reprocess the water. So the water that is used for cleaning is coming back after mixing with certain chemicals to wash it again. So would that not be a reintroduction of the same bugs that is already passed through one section?
Yeah.
So
On one particular hospital where we looked at bacillus and problems, it was summer, and what reduced their levels massively was getting the linen turned around quickly, because it was sitting festering for a couple of days before entering the wash process. So it's another element to it.
I was in a situation where somebody was asking me if they could reutilise the water from an RO plant into laundry, and it was from renal. It was from the renal side, and I don't think anybody had actually spoken to the AED, the sterile services, or the decon lead, or infection prevention control, to actually identify whether that was a reasonable thing to do with the amount of engineering that they would have had to have done to get it in there. I don't think they even considered that there was an infection risk.
Yeah, and one of my experience with the laundry is that they don't even have microbiological testing. Even though it states in the HTM standard, you need to have the microbiological testing done for validation. They use some patch test, which is not even valid. So it is interesting to see how long they are waiting for those linen to be washed, as Tim said.
So there's whilst we're on linen, why is so much used linen incorrectly classified as infectious, approximately 90%?
Yeah, that's probably answered the first question, and Tim answered. There's all the clinical waste. Are they clinical waste? No, because if somebody just had if you look at the HTM standard again definition, infected waste linen is actually with the blood and body fluid. They don't consider urine as a blood body fluid. I don't know why, don't ask me that. But a nappy that is at home, is that thrown into a clinical waste? No, it goes into the general waste. So same way, the urine is not considered, but in the clinical area, even if they think there is a possibility of a contamination rather than contamination, it's actually goes into the contaminated waste. And it is a improper practice, probably lack of education, lack of training, lack of focus on sustainability from the clinical area.
Okay. Can we go down? What is the panel's view on using large peel pouches with trays instead of SMS wrap or rigid containers? Jim?
So possibly, and it was one that started to prompt me, because it is paper-based. The back is paper-based, the front is a cellophane-based. But we'd need to trial it, because it's very different trying to get enough steam to penetrate into, as I call them, peel pack or view pack, to getting enough steam in to heat up 12 kilograms of orthopedics. It's a very different level of volume you're trying to pass through that material. So possible, it was a thought process, because when I started looking at this, it was I got to come from a point of not knowing enough of what we're using. So yeah, thought it would be worth looking at.
Got any thoughts, Dan?
To be honest, it's not my area of expertise, so I'll steer away from that one.
So do you think SSDs should process their own linen as part of decontamination HTM? I didn't ask that question, did I?
Is that possible? That's the question. It's not possible, isn't it? Ideal situation is, but it will be very challenging, because do you have a space for it? Do you have the facility for it? Both of these linen decontamination area needs to be a specialized area rather than just attached with a CSSD, because it brings its own risk. Ideal situation is to have an inspection and get the current linen facility to come up on that HTM standard, so that we have a promise that we are getting a clean linen back. Out of the 3 linen processing in Ireland, there was only 1 which actually had a standard. And I was actually glad. Out of the 7 facilities I visited, there was 1 with a clear standard. So it is possible. If one can do it, others can also do it. but the cost was high.
Were they also processing other things other than hospital linen?
Some do process the hotel laundry, but they have a separate facility. Never mixed up together.
Down a bit.
John has a question.
I think it's quite interesting. I've visited a couple of laundry facilities, and they're the lost child of our industry. They really are. And you're right, there's so much room for improvement. It might be something worth us spending a bit more time actually bringing some people in who run them and having a talk about it. I think it might be quite interesting because, I visited a site and they were reprocessing water, put it into a big reservoir, which was completely contaminated. We tested it and it was growing. Ronan remembers one of those facilities. We tried to work out what was in the water, and there were so many bugs. It was impossible to identify them all. So I think it's an area where just people have not focused attention, and I think it might be an interesting area for us to give a talk on.
It's a bit of a Cinderella service.
It is. It's very much
Cinderella service. Rob at the back, I see.
Mike's not working again. Oh, is that on? Is that on?
I don't know. Okay, right. It was coming up to a question that happened a while ago. I've been trying to get the mic working ever since. BSEN 14065 is the microbiology testing requirements for linen in environments and healthcare setting. So you should make sure that your linen provider or your in-house linen is certified to that standard, and then it depicts all the sort of the infection control and microbiology tests that you need to do to verify the efficacy of your laundry service. So that should be on the framework. That's what you should be getting your linen providers to adhere to, and that standard's been out for a while, since 2016.
Jim?
The other bit to add to that is pay them a visit every now and again, because you can get all the paperwork, but if you actually turn up and have a walk around, you'll form your own opinion.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I visited one of the facility, and as soon as we walked in, the staff were on a high alert. So we passed through the washing area. I found the washer for the contaminated linen was like it was closed. It was not working. You could see the linen inside it. We went past that area, but then I let others walk to the front. I came back to chat to one of the staff, and I asked them, "Oh, can I see how that process runs?" And it's like, "Oh, that's broken for a couple of months now." So when you are visiting, as soon as you walk in, they will get an alert. The infection control is on site. And as soon as they will change the gloves, they will walk through the right processes. But what you will see is the dust on the floor. They cannot remove the big box of alginate bags that is on the sides. They forget those little things, but we've noticed them. So they get the process right. They have every paperwork done to the dot. All the training, vaccination, microbiological testing, but I don't know how they got it right.
So Ursula, you've got
It's in the Northwest then, because I did an audit of my laundry back in June and was actually really, really impressed. One, it was an impressive feat of engineering. But secondly, I was same as you. I was looking for that dust. I was going around with white gloves trying to find something, and it was absolutely spotless. Even the segregation where they had the standard linen going one way and the infected linen going into the with the alginate bags. I was expecting to see a mass of alginate bags just strewn over things, and it wasn't. It was very clean, very well run, and I was really impressed with it. So in the Northwest, we might be a bit more fortunate than most.
Right, I'm going to go to Ursula now. All right, Rob.
Hi, just a question on the containers. So I do remember back in my early career in SSD, we did have containers. I folded linen, had green walls with all the lint and everything everywhere. But what I'd like to do from this new system of containers, what do you wrap the sets in? Or if you've got your container, you've got the instruments inside, is that not just one barrier? So if I'm a theatre nurse, which I was, I would expect to be having the scrub or the circulating nurse opening one layer, and then I'm opening the inner layer. So if somebody's taking off the lid off the container, is that not just one layer? Do you wrap the set inside? We used to, with the linen wrap, would be wrapped inside, or then we moved on to wrapping with a tray wrap, and then we went completely away from containers. But it's the traceability as well as the container. The container is the instrument as well, so you have to track the container with your set. So that container I would want to put in with my instruments. Are my washers going to be able to take that? How is my traceability? In Ireland, we have only one traceability system covering the whole of Ireland. How am I going to track, if I'm going to track the container, or am I going to track the tray of instruments? But it should be, I'm tracking all of it together. So I don't know whether it's a question or a comment, or I'm trying to figure out how would I go backwards.
In the tracking system, you want the container as an item, but linked to the contents, the tray that you're doing. Going on the single barrier, there's a point, because you know with a wrap system, you take the outer wrap off, you know, in part of the prep area, and then the inner wrap once it's, so that detaches what's settled on it out of the air in storage better than necessarily the container, unless they wrap inside as well.
But it's in their standard. It's in their standard to actually open sequentially, not just one. So are we going to have to bring theatres involved if we were planning to go over that? Are they going to be happy that their standard is now changing because we want to be more sustainable-ish?
Yeah, no, I think I've exhausted
You
my.
said it. Right, look, we've got a question at the back here. So at what point do we know when the containers are no longer safe for use, considering penetration limits and post-cycle contamination risks? Dan?
I think visually you should make that judgment, and I think you know with a container, fair wear and tear, you will get scratches on that container because it's generally they're aluminium, they're anodized. But in the absence of a test like the one I showed, then how can you definitively tell if that is compromised? You know, you could have a very sort of micro cut in some of the gaskets, and you wouldn't know. So, yeah, I think it's about putting a robust maintenance program in place to check them, and if possible, an automated process as well.
Anyone else got a comment, Jim? You're nodding. You
No, I agree.
Everything you agree. Cool. Right. Non-compliant JAG assessment, I believe, has the potential to stop an endoscopy service continuing until all non-conformances are resolved. Is there not a similar body for laundry services? No.
No.
No,
No. Sadly, not.
sadly no. I wish if there was.
What? To scroll down? I'm sure I didn't ask any of the questions at the top. Can you scroll down, Aidan? Oh, yeah, don't forget that one
What's
that I'm
this?
going to ask. Do the scratches on containers create flakes of aluminium loose?
Yeah, I mean, logically, if you scratch something and take material off, there'll be loose material. So, providing that's on the outside of the container and doesn't go inside the set. So that's, again, it's a maintenance consideration. Not too sure about the comment about Arsenal there.
Yo, do you want supposed to see that? I was going to ask.
Anti-Arsenal contingent.
Not yet, not yet. So what is the biggest cause of damage? In your opinion, each of you, what is the biggest cause of damage to sterile barriers in your opinion? The biggest cause of damage to sterile barriers?
Improper handling.
Yeah.
That's the most common what I have seen. So it comes out of the sterilizer, sterile, clean. Improper handling, improper storage. that's actually damages the sterile biosystem.
handling where?
Out of the CSSD. The time that goes out from the central sterilization department. Did that answer correct? Yeah.
Yeah, training, I think. That's the key. Like robust training all round.
Training again.
Because if you look at the containers, the ones particularly that have been dropped, why have they been dropped? Are they too heavy? Are they not suitable? Clearly, you've got a great visual with them to see when there's an issue there with handling.
Another thing you would see a wrong storage, again outside of CSSD. Third portion where you get a maximum number of contamination when it is left opened in the prep area and then improperly set within the theatre setting. That's another idea.
Jim?
Storage, handling.
Storage and handling.
Yeah.
Storage and handling. What's this one about bioplastics? Just scroll down a bit. No, sorry, I mean up. Would on-site I've heard that one, on-site composters. I've done that one, haven't I? When does the panel think automated packing systems using fully recyclable material will become the norm? Jim?
I'm not sure we can ever get there.
Dan?
Well, having seen one of these automated robots probably, 6-7 years ago at a show, and still seeing the same thing every time you go to these shows again. I don't know how integrated they are, but they haven't come on in that time. So maybe a long time to go.
I've recently had some of the nanoparticle research that is going on. I would say maybe in another 5-6 years, you would hear there are some new technologies coming up into the nanoparticles, and that may be a new era, maybe 10 years down the line. Cool. A little bit more time. But there are researches ongoing. I recently have seen some other plastic cover that is completely biodegradable. Cannot really call as plastic, but it has the features of plastic. So definitely there are works ongoing research is ongoing in relation to the new product development. But the cost was very high, so that would be more challenging.
When do you think we might get to, if we had Tim from Netherlands, Tim Horman was his name, and he did that whole recycling thing. When do you think that's going to hit? This one for you, John. When do you reckon that's going to hit town?
Well, they talked about circular economy, haven't they? There's been talks about circular economy, etc. But I think a lot of it's down to capital investment, and I think we've seen the discussion today. Containerization is possible, but you do need the infrastructure. You need investment in the actual containers. The Cardiff and Vale example, are still very early stages. It's going to take a lot of capital investment. Even managed service, you've got to pay for it somewhere. It comes out of your revenue budget rather than your capital. So, yeah, I don't know. Have we got the appetite for it as healthcare providers? We should. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but I do think, it needs that. You can't have both things, can you? You've got to invest in things if you want to make it better, but sometimes we don't want to invest.
Maybe too many competing priorities. Right. Well, got one last question because I was running right on time.
It was only to say about the automatic packing systems. If anyone wants to get themselves over to Holland, they've gone completely automated with the Rapid robot. And I was very skeptical when I went over, but it's a fantastic system. Again, very, very heavy on capital investment, but it reduces your packing time per set down to under a minute and cuts down on all the waste of the wrap. And it also then provides all your labeling and everything else. And all you're doing is placing the set on the conveyor belt. it completely automates everything.
So on that visit to Holland, visit a couple of hospitals that use pharma filter. So there is zero incineration.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much, panel. Jincy, Dan and Jim, give them all a round of applause.